The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
And I will match your quote with my current life quote from Winston Churchill himself. If you're going through hell, then keep going.
Amen.
Right? Fear, episode 72. Welcome to another Epedition. That's so ridiculous. Can we start over?
Go with it, man.
Epedition is meant to be an expedition. It's not an expedition. It is another edition of Through a Therapist's Eyes, the podcast. You are Craig Graves. I am Chris Gazdick, where we invite you to see the world through the lens of a mental health and substance abuse therapist. Goal to create emotional growth. This is not a goal to deliver therapy services in any way. So check out throughatherapist'seyes.com. Craig, episode 72, Fear. Question, are friend or foe? The human emotional experience. Let's figure this thing out together, buddy.
So who said mine? Was it FDR or JFK?
FDR, absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, no, maybe I'm wrong. No, it was.
I think it was
John.
FDR.
No, I think it was Kennedy because it was the whole missile crisis and that time frame where the nation was living in the Cold War and it was terribly fearful and I think it was Kennedy that made the statement.
I'll have to look that up.
In any regard, this is a fun one again. More of these recently have been my main brainstorms and stuff, and that's when this one kind of goes on to deal with. Craig, let's do a combined alternate fun fact and talk about two things. This is kind of we should do a big announcement kind of reality with this topic because we both have some really cool and interesting things going on. I think we're hopefully going to have the year of expansion for the Through a Therapist's Eyes platform. And I'm really excited about both of these things that we've got going on as part of this whole community. And that would be, I've actually finished it, Craig. I finished it.
Finished what?
A book.
A book.
A book. Through a Therapist's Eyes, you can be emotional and remain safe. Book 1, The Self. So keep your ears and eyes peeled. We'll have a date, I guess, or some sort of grand opening, a date where I want to challenge everybody who listens to this show to figure out when that date is through listening to us, and to buy the book on the same day is going to be the goal when we open that up. Dude, this is a book that over the years I've had many therapy moments, and it's a compilation, if you will, a compilation of all these different little therapy moments where thoughts have just come to me and I wrote them down and I wrote about them to help people, in multiple areas of their life. So that's actually intended to be, multiple writing projects. We'll see how it goes over the next several months, because the first one is the self. It's all about how to manage, the emotional self and therapy moments that have been really neat in real therapy sessions with people that I've just written down sort of quotes, and then I write about each quote. And I'm really excited about this because I think it's going to be a pretty neat writing project that people can really benefit for. So keep an eye out for it. The book will be it will be hopefully it might be still several months out. I'm not sure if I'm going to do self-publishing or get with a publisher. I think that I've got an inside track and an interest in a publishing company, but it might be a self-publishing effort. We'll see how it goes. But Through a Therapist's Eyes, you can be emotional and remain safe. Book 1, The Self. Mr. Graves, what you got going on this year?
I got a lot of things going on this year. I am working on becoming an Unbeatable Mind coach. We did the book review last year of Mark Devine's book, Unbeatable Mind, and he's turned that into a coaching program. And I'm actually working on the final exam, not as we speak, but before you got here this morning, I was going through the final exam, working on that. And I'm hopefully going to finish that up today and submit it. And then I'll have my interview with the faculty, and receive my certification, hopefully, if all goes as planned.
Be a certified life coach.
Yes, specifically in the unbeatable mind process, if you will.
And just to speak you up a little bit, man, I mean, you've been doing this show for how many episodes?
Well, this is 72. I don't know if you want to count those little outtakes we did, but we have 72 and counting.
We'll count them. 80. We'll call it 80. Flat, even
It's
number.
probably more like 85 if you...
Point is, how many weeks have you done this? And I think that that's going to wrap itself all up real nicely into all the things that you incorporate into the coaching experience to a certain
We've been at
extent.
this since September of 18.
Gosh.
So a little over a year and a half, I think, or right at a year and a half.
Wow. Yeah.
I found his book, Coach Divine's book, back in 2013, The Way of the Seal. And I have been studying the practices and principles of Unbeatable Mind since then. So when this opportunity to become a coach came along, I was thrilled to become a part of that. And I'm looking forward to taking it to the next level, man.
Listen, we'll do a show on the difference between coaching and therapy because I think there are a lot of similarities to a certain extent. You know, one of the big differences, and is actually, where did I get that? I need to write that down because there was somebody I was listening to recently that, dang gummit, now I forgot. I knew I was going to forget it because I didn't write it down. They highlighted the differences super well. But one of the big differences is diagnosing and whatnot, of course. You know, coaching doesn't diagnose. But, man, I think that you're going to be an amazing coach when you really, you know, continue to do it because you've already done some of it, I know. You're not totally green with it. But wrapping all of these mental health concepts and kind of guiding to people through daily life and is a lot of what we do in therapy, you know, kind of as well. And you know, for all you guys listening out there, a coaching relationship is a really intimate and cool individual relationship, much like a therapy relationship that you get to work with someone individually. And we'll put links on our sites and stuff, and you're going to be an awesome coach.
Well, I appreciate your vote of confidence there. You know, coaching is more about moving forward as opposed to digging into deep emotional issues of the past. So I think a show on coaches versus therapists would be great. And one of the things we talk about and have learned, and the faculty at the Unbeatable has stressed, is, you know, we're not therapists. Mm-hmm. And we've studied some documents I'll share with you on what is a coach versus a therapist. But, you know, I don't want to say every successful person, but a lot of big successful people that you'd probably recognize if I said their name have coaches, man. Coaching is a $3.4 billion a year industry. And this is a real coaching program based on the International Coaching Federation principles. And so this is the real deal. One of the problems with coaching is anybody can become a coach, you know.
Right.
Joe can become a coach and just hang up his shingle. But this, you know, has been a real program that we've worked through and studied, and it's based on the IFC. So it's you know, like I say, I've been doing these principles myself since 2013, 2014, and have seen huge benefits from it. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited, man.
And you've talked about it a lot in what you do, and it's rubbed off on me in a lot of ways. And I'll tell you, when you're working with a coach as with a therapist, again, you're getting an intimate relationship developed with somebody, and you're right. In order to be successful with something that you're really setting a goal for with yourself, you can't do it alone. And having a really an intimate relationship with somebody that you're walking through it with actively, dude, it's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer for sure. So more on that as things develop. Let's get to fear, our friend or foe. Which do you think it is more of, Mr. Graves? A friend of ours, or is fear a foe of ours?
I think it's a friend of ours.
Ooh. Why would you say that?
No question.
No question.
Because it alerts us when there could be danger, you know. It alerts us when there could be danger. It helps us to become better, because we're afraid of failure, or we're afraid of repeating the same things over and over again. So I think if you channel it correctly, fear is a good thing.
Absolutely. I think it's both is obviously the trick there. But I think people are fearful of fear.
I think they are. I think if you let it control you, then it's a foe. But I think if you channel it it's more of a friend.
There is nothing to fear but fear itself.
And that was FDR, by the way. I looked it up.
There it is, FDR.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we were both right on our first gut. You know, it's a feeling induced rather by a perceived danger or threat that occurs in life. This definition I came up with, I think it was just Google. I don't even have a quote for it or a show note for it, but certain types of organisms, right, causes changes in metabolic and organ functions, and ultimately a change in behavior, such as fleeing behavior or hiding or freezing from fear or from perceived traumatic events or traumatic events, depending on how you define that. Fear really is a feeling, though. It's not a reality. It is something that is in our head that is based on perception and experiences, I would say. You know, some people can experience the same thing, and some people are going to be fearful of that, and other people are going to not be. Well, how can that be? Because it really is something that we're experiencing inside as an emotion, as a state of being. And we're going to deal with it better after the end of this show. We're going to be more insightful about what's going on, and you're right, how to channel it. You know, we'll do a show on anger at some point, I'm sure, too. Because things change when you become fearful at times. If you channel it, if you do, as you say, Craig, and, you know, get into, you know, examination of your behavior, examination of your situation, and examination of your you know, potential outcomes, and, you know, and we talked about goal setting is a big part of hopefulness a few weeks ago. Well, fear can trigger, and I think you brought that up in that show, actually. You know, you know, being hopeless can actually create hope because you create goals. Well, fear is the same way. You know, fear can get you out of your stuck spot and get you motivated to really make something happen. And that's good. Fear's not all bad. It absolutely can be our friend. I think, Craig, I ask you that because I think a lot of people really identify fear as a foe. It's an inherently bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing. I would say it is definitely not a bad thing. I mean, if you're out in the woods and you see a bear,
you better be fearful.
And you see some cubs, yeah, you better be fearful. You better be
heightened awareness.
Fear's good, right? Heightened awareness. If you can't get on an airplane because you're afraid, that's a different story. I think, you know.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we'll get into talking about stuff like that.
We will.
But yeah, man, fear is our friend.
You know, I think that there's a certain amount of armor that we can carry with developing insight and being knowledgeable about what's going on and understanding, to go back to the tacit knowledge. I mentioned that a lot now, don't I?
You know? Yeah, you mentioned it last time. Yeah. That's right.
You know, in understanding tacitly, understanding the experience that you're having and what it really is. Let's look at the metabolic factors of fear. Isn't that a weird way to think of fear being metabolic?
Metabolic.
It's really a function of your body.
Yeah.
Metabolically.
So why do we have fear? Let's go there.
Well, why we have it is based on simply the fight or flight system that's in our brain. Now, a lot of people have heard of the amygdala, but let's just go through these different things that are a little bit more in depth so that you can at least have a place where you get information beyond the fight or flight system in the amygdala that everybody talks about. You ever hear of the thalamus?
I have.
Yep. You know what it is?
No.
I don't either. The more and more I hear these things, though, neurologically, over the years, I'm actually starting to get, like, you know, cerebellum and the different little intricate parts of the brain that we're starting to really learn about. We're at the infancy, though, I warn you.
Yeah, the cerebellum, so you got hippocampus on here. I know what that is, and amygdala.
Right.
Is the thalamus a part of the brain?
It is.
Okay.
It decides where we send incoming sensory data. So you get information from your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your skin, you know, in your nose, and your thalamus is actually the part of your brain that decides, all right, so here's the data. Where the heck am I going to channel this? And it goes through your neurotransmitter system in an absolutely neat way to go to where it thinks you need to send that information. And then there's something called the sensory cortex, and this actually comes from science.com, science.howstuffworks.com, I should say. And there's definitely a link on this because I didn't Google much, but I saw this as I just glanced at the sites. And I thought this is a cool little thing to look at the science behind it. Sensory cortex interprets this data. So the thalamus grabs it, or your eyes grab it, in ears and mouth and nose and skin and whatever. And then it goes through your sensory cortex and throws through your brain over to your hippocampus, which stores and retrieves conscious memories and processes the stimuli that you get in the established cortex. And then it goes over the amygdala, decodes it, and decodes the emotion and determines, hey, is there a possible flight need here? Is there a threat? And then it also, actually, I didn't realize this, but the amygdala actually in your brain stores memories. That's where PTSD happens, because you've got this stored experience that your brain is absolutely keeping track of because you've learned the hot stove is a bad place for a hand, and you will remember that because of your brain.
Got it.
Right?
That's also called the reptilian brain, right? That's the oldest part of the human brain.
I've heard this as a controversy. I mean, I wish you had a camera right now. You can't see it, but Craig, if you see my fist and you put your thumb inside your fist and you just pry all your fingers up, you pry up your frontal cortex, it sits right there, and it sits right on top of the stem. And some people believe it to be the oldest part of your brain.
Right. The reptile brain.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true because other people have said no, the other things had grown first, or it's not known.
Could be debatable, right? But I think that's what I've heard is the amygdala is the reptilian brain, which is the oldest part of the brain, like you're saying.
And it would make sense to me.
And we have the mammalian brain, and I can't remember, is that the hippocampus? The mammalian brain. Then we have the frontal cortex, which is the monkey mind, if you will, or the youngest part of the brain.
Well, I think all of these, the thalamus, the cortex, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and lastly, the hypothalamus actually activates the fight or flight response. I think they're all kind of in there in the center, little parts of all that center, the guts of the brain. That's probably all a part of the reptilian brain that you talk about. The other is, the top frontal cortex is visualization and imagination and thinking process. And right, the frontal cortex is arguably the newest part of our developed brain, where we're abstractly thinking about things and stuff. But understand that your brain basically is getting this data and making it work for you so that you can live and survive, learn, remember, and thrive. That's why our race, the human race, has developed to where we are today. I think that's pretty neat. I think that's fantastically cool. You hear people talk about embrace fear, rejoice in the hard times. You hear these phrases?
Oh, yeah.
Right? They're powerful. They're hard to understand. Why would I revel in? Why would I create discomfort in order to grow? Why will I feel happy and rejoice when I'm hurting, insecure, fearful, humiliated, doubtful, hopeless, in a tough spot? Well, because that's the way we develop. Your brain's working in those times. Relax and understand and let your brain, as Dr. Spickler talked about, work for you. Because you're problem solving, you're growing, you're maturing. And I think if we can understand that, we can defeat fear. Or work with fear. We can defeat fear from blocking us, is probably maybe a good way to put it. I think that's pretty neat stuff.
It's fascinating stuff. And it is for sure, I think that just about everybody that is anybody would say that we learn and grow when times are hard. So the things you're talking about, kind of getting uncomfortable, that's one of the things we talk about at Unbeatable Mind is, we create crucibles. For example, I did a crucible in September, and I took 3 ice baths a week for the month of September, For November, I did a 5-hour ruck that ended up giving me quite an injury.
Oops.
But if you bring these challenges to you, when the real life challenges come along, you've programmed yourself to deal with that stuff, to deal with that adversity, right? And so there's definitely benefit in that. I mean, the Bible, consider it pure joy when you face trials and tribulations of many kind. There's just tons of stuff out there modern day and ancient, that talks about how we grow through struggles.
You grow the most when you hurt the most. I've said that in therapy a lot. You know, you're in the middle of a breakup. You're fearful about ever being happy again. You're in the middle of a depression episode, and you're feeling stuck and having no options, whatever it might be. You know, you're having a nervous breakdown and panicking to the point of terror, which, by the way, we're not really talking about terror today. And I wanted to make that distinction. You know, terror is just basically extensive or severe fear. You know, and when we talk about clinical diagnoses, people will get into terror states with panic attacks and OCD and things like that. And we're talking about that too. It's just on a bigger level. So we're generalizing this a little bit more and talking specifically and going deeper on, you know, generally we all experience fear, and how do we handle it? How do we manage it? Is it our friend or is it our foe? So we talked about this already. Let's move on a little bit to motivator versus destroyer. Does fear destroy things? You know, look at my list, Craig. A and B. Which was longer?
Just destroyer is definitely longer.
And I didn't plan that. But when I was brainstorming this and stuff, dude, I got to admit, that's where my brain went. That sucks, doesn't it?
It does.
But it's true. And I feel like that's why I asked you that in the beginning, to kind of help reprogram our thoughts about, you know, how can this really be a friend? How can it really help us? I think we've done a pretty good job of that here for a little bit. We'll go back to the motivator in the motivator versus destroyer section here. But how does it destroy? How does it destroy progress and hopefulness and whatnot? What says you, sir?
Well, I think, you know, if you let it control you or make decisions for you, then it can destroy. So you hear people who want to start their own business, but they're afraid of failure, and so they never do.
Good example.
People who want to lose weight and they don't, because they're afraid they can't, or
I've tried it before and it failed.
You know, I see a pretty girl and I want to ask her out on a date, but I'm afraid to, and I don't. You know,
she's definitely going to think I'm stupid.
Yeah, I mean, so fear can, if you look at it that way, it's definitely going to be a destroyer.
So I look at, you know, we've talked about marriage and attachments and relationships, and I've thought a lot about, not on a marital level, but I've thought a lot about how abandonment and engulfment, insecurity affects people in their daily life with friends and politics and, you know, how you see the world. As a matter of fact, I have a current event, internal versus external locus of control, and how that's going to affect politics. I'm going to hold that back as a current event item for a little bit closer to the election cycle we're getting into. But, you know, when you look at insecurities, they're really fears. That's another word for a specific type of fear. I mean, if you have engulfment insecurities out there, and you're really going to have a hard time being controlled by other people and being judged by other people and needing space and having to think and back off. If you're abandonment and security based, you're really going to be fearful of being alone and not being thought of as important. And you know, these are. Remember that sheet? I mean, I pulled that sheet out and I just did it in my head because I've worked with so many people in my office on that specific sheet. I can't tell you how many times that sheet has come out of my drawer, and we're looking at how you're acting out of fear right now, thinking my boss does not think my view is important on this project. That is an abandonment, insecurity-based fear perception. I'm being criticized by somebody really important to me. Well, they might be just giving you a view about yourself and really trying to be helpful to you. That is an engulfment-based insecurity fear perception. Fear really, with insecurities, can destroy progress or behavior.
It can, yeah. What if you're in a meeting and you have something to say, something very valuable to say, but you're afraid to say it, you know? Oh, I'm going to look like an idiot, or they're not going to agree with me. And you let that fear keep you from speaking up. Maybe what you had to say was something that was going to catch your boss's attention.
You ever hear the statement, there's no dumb question?
Later on down the road, he's like, this guy's a go-getter. He's asking great questions, bringing up good points, and I'm going to give this guy a promotion or a raise.
Mm-hmm.
But if you let that fear prevent you from saying those things, you're going to miss that opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, it is directly related, oftentimes, to an engulfment fear. I don't want to bring more attention to myself and ask that question or make that statement. We're talking to the CEO here, man. Like, I can't tell the CEO he's full of crap.
Well, I wouldn't use those terms, those words, but I mean, people respect that. People respect people who speak up.
Absolutely, and it's necessary. It will destroy your ability to progress as a group or as an individual. We've talked a lot about goal setting, and we're in still New Year's resolution time. Everybody pops their resolutions out now, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's still some people out there going on that.
Keep going. You got one more day, guys. You can do it. Well, fear stops even goal setting, right? Recently we talked about hope, and I think it destroys hope. Fear, if you let it, can absolutely destroy setting goals, which limits your ability to feel hopeful and wreck progress on your New Year's resolutions in real time right now when you're listening to this show. Be careful about that. Identify what your amygdala is doing, what your sensory cortex is doing, how your thalamus is getting information, and wonder about what you're feeling. You'll feel that adrenaline rush and that heart rate increase and that bead of sweat that pops out on your eyebrow, or your heart racing a little bit more, or that tension you feel in your neck or your chest, wherever you carry stress in your body. You'll feel that fear. Identify it. Set a goal. And speak up. What do you say, Craig? Get after it.
That's right.
Get after it. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Go do it. Go do it. You can totally do that. There is nothing stopping you from doing that. I say fear seeds confusion. When you're in a fear state of mind, you think this and you think that, and you kind of reanalyze that and rethink this and then rewire that and rethink this and research this and get more facts. And the more facts you get and the more things you think and the more evaluations you make, what do? Complicates the crap out of stuff that are probably really simple.
Keep it simple. Use the KISS method. Keep it simple, Sally. Or keep it simple, stupid. Whatever.
I'm going with stupid. Where's Sally coming from, man?
Well, I was trying to be politically correct.
Well, how about Sam? Why we got to go Sally?
There you go. Well, it doesn't matter to me. Whatever. Keep it simple.
Fear-mongering. You've heard that term before, and I tell you, we are in a political environment. My gosh, there's a lot of fear-mongering going on. I mean, you can't hear an issue without somebody purposefully using this. And I'll tell you exactly why I put this on my list, because I was taking a break from show prep, and I was looking at a war in Ethiopia called the Red Terror that somebody was telling me about, and I thought of Hitler in the time when the Germans were advancing, and they had their radio programs and politicians and different people in different industries, even the milk industry. Research articles coming out telling you that applesauce and apple juice is giving you cancer, so drink milk. Dude, people use your fear to drive you to where they want you to be.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you see his eyes,
It's a huge
guys?
marketing tool, right?
Look at his eyes.
You might get this if you don't eat this.
Right?
Or you might do that if you don't do this.
I mean,
it's really, I mean, the mainstream media and advertising and marketing, it's all fear-based. It's almost all a fear-based system.
Well, good mainstream media is giving you information, and that's different. We need to talk about that someday, actually, because I actually have that in my blue book with
The what?
topics.
Talking about mainstream
media and how
great.
that stuff works. Yeah, because there's a lot of psychology stuff that's going on. There's a lot of good stuff that goes on in good reporting. Some of that's been lost. But to generalize this a little bit, yeah, people absolutely, I mean, listen, there have been companies that are lavishing psychologists for millions of dollars in their research at how can we make our product move the entire population to use our product more and more and more. And I'm telling you, fear is a big factor.
It is. It's a huge factor.
Man. And it works. It works. You can move markets and make billions on a company, a blue chip stock, by shooting out a fear-based statement on their product that's going to tank. Boom! And you just short sold that company. And people have done that, man, on a mass big level. It's amazing. It is amazing. So fear-mongering is a big part of that, man, in the way that it's definitely a foe. Along with the same lines, I wrote seeds misperception. How do you perceive accurately when you're blinded by fear? So, blinded by fear, you ever hear that expression?
Oh, yeah.
I love words and expressions. I think they're meaningful because we use them that way.
Oh, absolutely.
When you're blinded by fear, your perception is off, people, a lot of times. And you see this most clearly, when you're trying to protect yourself from something. You interpret some major danger here, and so I'm just going to totally misperceive this situation. And it happens in marriages. What did we talk about last show, Craig? Guilt. Parent guilt. It kills you in parenting.
Yeah.
You mentioned the boardroom and business. Ain't no better way to tank a new company than to be fearful. You'll bail. Like, quick. You have no persistence. Because the fear, abandonment insecurities, or engulfment insecurities, and the fear statements that come through with that, or the doubts that come out, or the guilt that come out with that, it leads to dark, dark places, for sure. Let's get back to the show, and we talked a little bit about motivator and destroyer. We talked about what it is. I want to mention a little bit of the who, insofar as specific anxiety stuff is a big deal. I think you said that at top show. I hope we get to that. Let's get to that after the break, shall we?
Let's do it.
So usually with the break, I go to the home family, or I go to Craig and I say, tell us about our sponsor. And I'm like, dude, I'm excited about this stuff, man. Hey, check this out. Melatonin Sleep Lotion for $26.95. What is that, you would say? You're supposed to say that, Craig.
What is that, you would say?
Melatonin Sleep Lotion is a unique melatonin transdermal to provide relaxing sleep and youthful glowing skin that you've always wanted. Sleep like a beauty queen or king, they say, with melatonin. And it's absolutely something that people buy. Mm-hmm. They absolutely buy this stuff all the time. And so a lot of these products you'll see, if you got to go to our website, throughatherapist's.com. You click on that on the far right-hand side. You have to scroll down. I really think we should move it and make it a little bit more prominent, Craig. I don't know how we can do that. But you'll find it on the right-hand side. You scroll all the way down. You click on Whole Family Products, and that absolutely clicks you through to their site where they have descriptions like I just read for all kinds of hand creams and hormone creams. And there's something called andropause creams you could buy for your husbands. You ever hear of that, Craig?
Andropause. Is that
It's a
like
thing.
the Mark McGwire thing when he was
thing,
hitting
man.
home runs?
Yeah, something. It makes stuff work better for you.
I'm with you.
So how about we get back to the show? Fear factor as anxiety. Craig, man, there are terrifying conditions that are out there that people have struggled with, and I've looked in their eyes. I've been invited into their lives. I've walked with them through applications in daily life in ways that they do get into a state of terror. It's terrible to watch people struggling in ways where conditions, a lot of times with anxiety-based diagnoses, that they're just almost rendered helpless. And I want to tell you why. Remember the Tale of Two Tapes? Remember how I see an overview of mental health?
Let's review that.
The Tale of Two Tapes. On the one side, you've got the biological realities. You've got the The things we just talked about, the amygdala, hypothalamus, the hippocampus, the sensory cortex, the thalamus. You got your genetics, you got your exercise, you got your nutrition, your body, your brain, really, though, specifically metabolically, as we talked about. When did we talk about that? Yeah, this show. A little bit ago. Is working against you when you have like something screwed up in that process. So that biology is a big factor in how you feel. But the other side is social and emotional. The other side of the tale of two tapes, your life experiences, your life relationships, the daily stress, the grind. All of that social and emotional stuff also drives how you feel. So I see you have an interesting web and a mix that gets created together what somebody is experiencing. Well, honestly, man, what's not fair, life's not fair, and I know, but what sucks is sometimes people's brains, Craig, I believe, literally with conditions are working against them. Like it's metabolically in a way that I don't really think we understand, causing much more fear experience than you and I can even identify.
Okay, so you think that's the case, or that is a scientific thing?
I know that's the case, yeah. I know that's the case.
So you're saying some people's fear experience is deeper than others?
Yes, because their brains are geared in ways that make their behavior seem completely odd, misunderstandable. I want to refer to people. Craig, please get a phone. Did I write this on our thing or a note? I definitely want this on the show notes. This podcast. I think I did put it in here somewhere.
You did. I
Okay.
think I saw a podcast reference
Good. Yes,
there.
good.
New York Times thing?
Yes, please make sure you get this. Because this was an awesome show. I mean, it honestly, man, I'm not going to lie. It absolutely watered my eyes up. It absolutely watered my eyes because on whatever date, then we'll have it on the show notes. The New York Times, The Daily, is a cool podcast. They had a show entitled Our Fear Factor Makes a New Friend. And what this was this sweet, cute little girl named Ella. I think her name was Ella. I was trying to look at this before I got to it, never did get to it. Ella Manners, age 9, was the cutest, sweetest little interview girl, man. This guy, Michael Barbaro, I think is the host name. He had this little 9-year-old join up. She's like, talk, talk. Can you hear me in this microphone? He's like, yeah, we can hear you. She's like, well, how? She was an adorable little girl. She says, hello, Mr. Michael. And he started interviewing her. And her adorable, childlike vision was transformed into a horrifying experience of what she goes through, terrified because of her OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. I did tell you she's age 9.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people don't feel like kids can experience this. Separation anxiety is a diagnosis. OCD is a diagnosis that kids go through. And, it is something that for her disables her ability to do things that other people would just do normally. She had 2 specific fears that drove her, many, by the way, down the Windex and all kinds of things with germs and stuff you would get with OCD. But her biggest ones were vomiting and tornadoes. And dude, they did a tornado drill in the school. This girl was in the fetal position on the floor, refusing to leave for the entire day, including when the mom was in the pickup line to get her kid.
Wow.
Fetal position, man.
But that's because of her OCD tendencies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
She had OCD, and that was when they began to realize that it started to manifest, and she's having more and more troubles. And they chronicled how to manage that, and she went away to a summer camp or something. They did exposure therapy.
Yeah, that's my question: is how do you manage fear if you have one of those kind of conditions? That's not your average thing, right? That's probably an extreme example. Would you say?
I'm going to say that it's not. Extreme is an interesting word. You watch the show Hoarders, and they take extreme cases. Maybe I just gave you an extreme moment.
That's an outlier, maybe is a better word. I don't know what the terminology is, but most kids, most people are not
Well, I guess what I'm defensive about with that is you take the numbers, man. OCD and anxiety. When you look at the statistics and numbers with people, dude, they're high, man. People have anxiety conditions at a clip of 10%. 15% of our population. That's not exactly an outlier from the population. We're not talking about 0.05% of people that very rarely experience this.
Yeah, but I believe there's probably things people can do to manage fear. If I have a fear of flying or a fear of heights, there's things I can do. But somebody who's got that much fear, somebody who's got OCD, as a therapist, how do you treat that issue or that condition? That's a condition, right?
It is absolutely a condition, and it's an excellent question. And the thing that I would tell you for people out there that do have different issues kind of going on, what I really want you to understand, and I have a list. We'll go through a list here. It was my brainstorming list, and I'm going to shut up about these diagnoses and stuff so we can get to that list and spend the rest of our time on, what do we do? How do we do this? Because if you have a condition, if you have your brain, unfortunately, really working against you, first of all, you can reprogram your brain. I believe in the plasticity of the brain and the brain's ability to learn and to change, really even metabolically. But if you have that, you have to understand that the things that we're talking about, these strategies, some of them you've heard, many of them you've tried, it's harder for you. It's harder for you. And I'm sorry that that's the case, but that's the cold truth of it.
No, I get that. I think you're right. Some people, it's harder to overcome certain fears or certain things than other people. I mean, that's just a...
So stick to it. Realize they're really real. They are effective. They're not going to be a magical solution, though, that you find. And so oftentimes, I'll have presenting problems in my paperwork at my office that you fill out. And people will say, I would like strategies to handle my worry. Okay, well, I got those. And we'll go through those. But I'm going to walk with you, and I want you to really realize that there's going to be some challenge in really persistently implementing these things, even when it feels like it's not working.
Okay, so what are the strategies? That's the next obvious question.
Let's get to it, he says. Ideas of how to manage fear that we feel. A, give it a name. Right? Give it a name. With a name, it becomes much less of a mystery, and you know that it's a thing going on. In marriage therapy that we talk about in the emotion-focused strategies in couples counseling, that engulfment, abandonment cycle that you get into, name it. We'll go through and name it.
So like a first name or...
Any way you want to name it.
What do you want to call it? John, Bob, Sally? What are you going to call it?
The point is you name it. You call it a name, a storm, a hurricane.
Okay, so you can call it whatever you want to.
Whatever you want to call it.
It could be a first name or it could be the storm. How the storm's coming on.
The fact is, when you see, there's a storm coming on, and our what one of the persons named it, the most original one and cool one that I felt like, for their marital cycle they got into was the well. Oh, I don't want to go in the well.
Deep, deep well.
Oh, man. And it was a couple, an older couple in the South, talking about their well with the skanky spiders and the scary dampness of it and the dankness of it and the darkness of it. I mean, it really gave me a visualization. And if I feel like I'm falling in the well, I know that that's that bad place that I go to with my insecurity fears that I don't want to get into and that I've gotten out of before. Okay. I can crawl right out of the well.
Yep, I got it.
I got a ladder built.
Makes sense.
I got ropes in there now.
Yep.
I can't get stuck in there because I've been in there before and I get out. I beat the crap out of Hurricane Sally. You can visualize all this stuff, right? I mean, it sounds silly.
No, it doesn't.
But you visualize this stuff. I can beat the crap out of that crazy clown, Johnny the Clown. He's scary. He's bloody. He's got knives, but I got guns, right? And you begin to work yourself out of it. But if you don't have a name and you don't know what's going on and you don't know that it's a metabolic process, then it's a mystery. And when something's a mystery, who's in control?
Nobody.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And that's how fear can beget more fear and can beget more fear and just blow up in this bigger thing and bigger thing and bigger thing. Mm-hmm. We're all a little OCD in that way. Mm-hmm. Okay, so put a name to it, and they did in that story. 12/31/19 New York Times Daily Podcast. Check it out, and you'll get a really good description of how this cute, sweet little 9-year-old girl did it. I'm going to spoil it a little bit because it was so cute. At the end of the show, they show what happened since they aired that show, because this is actually a re-airing of the show. They picked their favorite ones for the year. They had this older lady. She must have been 55, 60 years old. I don't know. Calling in, interacting with, out of gratitude to this little 9-year-old girl who spoke out about her anxiety and her OCD and how she's faced it and how she's confident about it now. Healing, helpful to this 55-year-old lady.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I
I
like
forget
that.
which part it was, but my eyes got watery on that show, man. Self-created safety statements.
Self-created safety statements.
Writing them down is more effective, but using breathing techniques and breathing through the fear that you're feeling, create these safety statements. Literally, like, I will be okay. I know that the milk is not going to give me cancer. You know, sounds a little bit silly, but honestly, if you're sitting there making those statements to yourself and reciting them, visualizing that, what do you call it? Meditating or what is it? Mantras?
Yeah.
You like mantras?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are powerful weapons against a fear state. Go ahead. You got a thought?
No, I got lots of thoughts, but just keep going.
Okay. Exercise the energy out of your system. Recently cut a tree down with an axe, Craig. Did I ever tell you that?
Yeah.
I did tell you.
Did you cut it up into pieces with an axe, or just cut it down and leave it laying there?
Definitely not. Have you ever cut a tree down with an axe?
Yeah, man.
Dude, have you really?
Yeah, of course.
Dude, that's hard. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It was not one event.
Yeah.
It was multiple
I don't
events.
know how big the tree is, but yeah.
This was a big pine tree.
Okay.
You know, it is. It's a great way to go do something physical. Your body, when you're in that state, has created cortisol and adrenaline, and all kinds of hormones are flowing through your body. Chemicals are flowing through your body that will enable you to lift a car if you're fearful that your kid is stuck under it. If you're going to feel that, it's helpful to use that. Mm-hmm. Don't criticize your wife, guys, when she's out cleaning the entire house out of getting this energy out of her system. You know, let her go. Your husband needs to go out and beat the crap out of his car and, you know, rip a piece of metal in two with sanding tools and whatever, man. Let him go. That we need to go and use our energy to get it out of our system. What do you think about directly challenging your fear? Right?
Directly challenging it. Dig into that a little
Refute what your fear is telling you. If you're able to do by yourself.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like self-talk, right?
It is.
You know?
It is.
I think that kind of goes maybe back up to self-created safety statements. I mean, if you're afraid of, let's take fear of flying, for example. You know, there's lots of safety statements you can make about getting on an airplane. And we talked about this in a show we did on emotions, I think. But statistically, airplanes are the safest way to fly. So if you're starting to board a plane and you feel that anxiety coming on, then it's a self-talk process where you go back.
It's going to crash, Craig. I know these things are not built very well. I saw a news article where the 747 came down.
Yeah, you're challenging.
I know that the flight crew is really stressed. They're not really happy. They're irritated.
Say, hey,
the pilot's not slept.
Those thoughts aren't helpful.
I have a friend that's an alcoholic and he flies these planes.
Statistically, the best way to fly or the best way to travel is in a plane. I mean, it's self-dialogue.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely powerful.
You go back, I think B and D kind of go hand in hand. Challenge your fear directly, refute the thought process. You do that through self-talk, and you use those self-created safety statements that you created up in item B.
And then I looked in combining that too. You know what we just talked about with conditions. You know, your brain really is working against you.
Yeah.
So try to do that alone. But honestly, sometimes that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Get a friend. Like, I will set up in therapy with people a process where you absolutely, first of all, expose the anxiety with a friend, Tell them what you've named it. Give them the name. Make fun of it. Just joke with it. Have fun with it. And let that friend know in advance, I'm going to come to you sometimes, and it's going to be this stupid Sally, the clown that's scaring the crap out of me, and I'm having a hard time. Sally's getting the better of me. You know, really, Sally's getting me. This fear clown is just fear mongering, and I'm stuck with it, man. I know it's Sally probably, but just tell me, is this plane really isn't going to crash probably when I get on there tomorrow, right? And you're going to be like, of course it's not, right?
Yeah.
It's fine. People fly all the time.
Yeah. I think a lot of what you said so far kind of goes back to that worm process that we've talked about before as it relates to the unbeatable mind.
There you go, Coach.
You have to, first of all, you have to witness the fear coming on. You have to see it in your mind. You have to be able to say, I'm in this fear process, right? At the same time, you're going to catch your breath. Deep breathing is going to engage your parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to calm you down. You're going to interdict that fear with a power statement. Stop. Or whatever your power statement is, you're going to visualize yourself in a better place. You're going to visualize the plane taking off safely and flying at altitude and coming in for a landing safely. And then you're going to run that mantra through your head, flying's the safest way to travel. Flying is the safest way to travel. Flying is the safe. And you're going to maintain that positive state using that mantra.
Yep.
So worm, witness, interdict, redirect, and maintain.
There's one problem I have with that, Craig.
What's that?
Why is an I and O in worm?
Well, it's interdict.
Well, it's supposed to be O.
Well,
worms.
It is worm. W-I-R-M.
Moving along here. Hey, F. What's F? Humor. I look at humor as the ultimate antidote, right? If you can laugh in the face of the thing that you're fearful of, man, you are rocking. I've literally done this. I will give presentations and talks and stuff, and usually after I get into doing it, I'm comfortable after a few minutes, and I've kind of relaxed into it. But boy, when I'm in the middle of preparing for it and getting ready to walk on stage, your blood's going, your adrenaline's up, you're shaking a little bit, man. If you start just laughing, just laugh literally like out loud and tell somebody right next to you, I am freaking out right now. I feel like I'm going to go out on that stage right here and I'm going to bomb the crap out of this. And these people are going to throw stuff at me. That is actually what I see. Isn't that ridiculous? And then maybe you get popcorn thrown at you, like literally throw it in your face. It's just goof with it.
Yeah.
Because the well is not really a true place to be stuck with. Mm-hmm. You can get great water from that and visualize that and just have fun with, the hurricane, if you've named it a hurricane. We're going to get the greatest fish after this hurricane here. It's going to be great. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So humor, man. Laugh it up, goof it off. It'll actually be fun. This is an interesting one next here, actually. And I thought about it, actually, because of the New York Times. And Ella had again said, you do these safety statements and you say there's no, the what was it, volcano, hurricane, what was it she said? Earthquake. I've got them all, but the one she did. What is it? Tornado. Jeez.
Tornado, yeah, tornado.
Wow. Yeah, man. She would say there is no tornado. There is no tornado. I'm not going to be hurt. And it would make the anxiety even worse for her.
Really?
Yeah. So you got to understand, any of these strategies, there's not a perfect fix-all and end-all, be-all for you. They're going to work sometimes. They're not going to work sometimes. You want a combination. And the truth of it is you can have an endless amount of combined strategies with what works for you. For her, she actually learned in her group, summer group or camp or whatever she went to, that she would just agree with it. She would say, okay, you know what? I forget what she named it. I think that's where the clown thing, I think she had a clown or some name with it. Chloe or something she called it. Yeah, I am going to get sick. You're right. There it is. That's fine. I'm going to get sick. Yeah, I'm going to get sick. Because she would get the anxiety. You're going to be sick. You're going to be sick. You're going to be sick. It's going to be bad. You're going to be sick. You're going to be sick. And she'd just be just horrified by it. And they had great sound effects that demonstrated that on that podcast. And she got to the point where she was like, okay, you know what? Fine. Yeah, that's right. I'll get sick. And the voice that would play her that theme was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I don't really have to tell you because you know. And it was a reverse psychology that just, boom, she was like, she would get out of it that way. So, yeah, a little reverse psychology. You ever hear the phrase reverse psychology?
Absolutely, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So fear factor can be reversed by, by things like that. And, as I was thinking about that to try to understand that in my own head, I came up with this. Glad I looked down at this and caught this as a part of it. You ever hear of bracing for impact?
Yeah.
Is that bad or good?
I think it's good.
Okay. Why do you think it's good?
Because you need to brace if there's going to be an impact.
Sometimes they say if you brace for impact, have you ever heard that your limbs are more likely to break?
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've seen drunks in car accidents, and they say, man, if you wouldn't have been drunk, you'd be dead.
Right? Because
Yeah.
your body is totally fluid.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So, yeah, brace for impact is something that you might do sometimes, but truthfully as well, going with it, breathing through it, flexibly let it go.
Oh, yeah.
Go with it.
Yeah.
These are phrases that say you don't have to tense up and brace through it and try to control and squeeze tighter.
Yeah, that's kind of going back to the breath, right?
It is.
I mean, we talked about managing and panic attacks or anxiety attacks with breathing.
Yep.
It's kind of the same thing, right?
Yep. The golden rule of anxiety. I've created the term golden rule with anxiety. How much time do we have? Because I did want to spend a little bit of time on this. I think we're doing okay. The golden rule with anxiety particularly works with OCD and anything that you get a little bit of compulsion on. It's kind of like I've learned every time I put up that Christmas tree, I just looked over your shoulder and saw your Christmas tree.
Yeah, it's still up. It's coming down today, though.
Yeah, me too, maybe, if I can get to it. Man, I'm fearful of getting that thing out because it's going to make me sick. The dust comes on it, and I'm just I'll just leave it off this year. I know I'll be better if I just leave it alone. And so you don't put it up. Guess what? You don't get the nausea or the headache from the dust. That's good, right? That's good, right? No, it's not. Because what happens is you become more and more fearful when you avoid what it is that you're avoiding. And so when you have to get to the point where you put up a Christmas tree, then it's even worse. So let's get it more realistic. If you have a phobia of elevators, and I've actually literally done this at my old building when we had an elevator with people. They're panicked. They're anxious prone. They're fear driven. And they will absolutely walk up the stairs. Now, the golden rule would say that's a bad idea. So it's really kind of confusing. Because if you take the short-term gain, you will feel a short-term, miraculous, it seems, almost decrease of anxiety. But the trouble is, every single time you layer that choice, layer after layer after layer, and then you're on vacation, and you're on the 67th floor on the hotel, and you have to go on the elevator because you've got a 90-pound suitcase, right? Now what are you going to do?
You're going to pay the bellhop to take your thing upstairs and in the elevator, and you're going to use the stairs to go up.
Avoid it again, huh? Okay, I'll make it better for you, Smarty. Down at the bank, you every single day have to get up to the 79th floor. What are you going to do? Every single day, walk up the stairs. Craig, there are people that do that. So the golden rule is you absolutely reverse psychology, if you will, but reverse intention. You have to be intentional with this anxiety-based fear strategy of putting yourself in the elevator. It's horrifying, and the short term, you're really increasing your anxiety, but you've got to know that long term, you're absolutely decreasing your relationship with an anxiety on an elevator.
Yeah, I get that, and I agree with that.
It is really hard to do, and I have actively done this. I've had to get on an elevator with people about 20 times sometimes to get through this.
Yeah, I think I may know who. I don't know about that.
No, I know you don't. What do you think? Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, you don't. I know you don't. But I wouldn't talk about it if I.
I think we
didn't
have
do
a
it.
mutual friend who is afraid of elevators.
Oh, they may have. I don't know who you're talking about. To tell me about the show. That's not who I was thinking about.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
I'll tell you
who.
after the show.
So listen, the golden rule is something to look at. And lastly, episode 2, the cornerstone of mental health. You remember?
Contentment, right?
Oh, that was episode 2.
Yeah.
All right, let me redo that. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Episode 1. Very first off the get-go.
And that was the intro.
With self-care.
Self-care.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Self-care. Fun, relaxing, enjoyable activities that help you distract from the world stress around you. They're not self-destructive in any way, and they're not work-related tasks. That's the way I define self-care, and it is the cornerstone of mental health, because you have to kind of be able to just chill out and get away from, the crazy stress and the life stuff around you. What are you thinking, man?
Agreed. I think you covered it well. I don't really have anything to add.
So the review, give it a name. Create self-created safety statements, breathing techniques. Exercise this stuff out of your system. Challenge directly the fear. Refute the thought process. Get an outside source to help you and set that up with them purposefully. Do not be alone. In the common theme of mine, don't be alone. Humor, laugh at it. Reverse psychology. The golden rule I explained. Self-care, the cornerstone of mental health. Pretty neat stuff, man. We do not have to live fearfully.
I agree, 100%.
We can get over that, get through that, learn from that, embrace that, rejoice in it, revel in it, and grow from it.
Mm-hmm.
So there is nothing to fear but fear itself.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going through hell, then
Keep
right on going. Take us out of here, sir.
ThroughAtherapistEyes.com. You'll find an entry for each and every show. You can listen right there on the website, or you can find us just about on any popular podcast platform. Also, on our website, you can find links to our Facebook and Instagram, and you can sign up for our email list. Don't forget about Whole Family Products. Be sure to go to our site first and click the link so Chris and I get credit if you purchase. And what's next, man?
I don't know exactly what's next, but I think that we got it booked as of today before we turn the mics on. Be on the lookout for this, man. I am super proud of him. I think it's going to be a special show. Our own very special friend, Mr. Aaron Clark, has agreed to come back on. And it has been over a year anniversary. We intended to do it around that time. We pulled out of that, and we'll talk about that. But he is going to come back on. And I think he mentioned that maybe his son and his wife will be with us to talk about
interesting.
The tragedy of having lost their dear son, Cody, and as a part of an AVM medical event.
Yeah, I'd love to meet those guys. I don't think I've met his wife.
You've not?
No, I don't think I have. So that'll be a pleasure.
You knew Aaron before the show, right?
I did not. That was the first time I'd met Aaron was on the show.
Oh, I thought you had.
No,
okay.
No.
Well, listen, this goes all the way back to episode 3. We told you we'd chronicle his story and work with him, but he has been working on it for sure. I'll tell you.
Yeah. So we're also working on another guest who's we just did a show on Asperger's, and we may have a guest come back and talk to us about that.
Not ready to announce it yet, I think, but
no, we're going to work out the details first with the scheduling and everything like that. But either Aaron or this guy would be potentially our second time we've had somebody on the show. So hopefully we can get that going, and that should be a good show too.
It's going to be a good year in the next few weeks, man.
I agree.
Just follow us and stick with us. We'll see you next week. Have an awesome time.